Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Non-Moving Pictures, where we examine movie posters as art. Last time, I said we'd be looking at a classic movie monster poster, which may have had the greatest impact on the public's perception of the monster it represents. A lot of people guessed that it would be the Wolfman. You would have been right if I were referring to the movie, but I'm referring to the posters. And the posters in question are for none other than the original 1931 Universal version of Frankenstein.
Yes, Frankenstein, the original classic. The movie that made Boris Karloff a household name. As you can see, I'm displaying 3 different posters here. They're all fairly similar. The giant floating head of the monster is the focal point. There's not really a whole lot of background. The human characters are all spread out along the bottom. This kind of layout was standard for the posters in pretty much every Universal Monsters series. Yet I made a pretty big claim regarding these things. I said that these posters did probably the most to completely alter the public's perception of the Frankenstein monster. So how can that be? Well, part of that, I recognize, is due to the movie itself. The choice was made to give the monster that now iconic box-shaped head and the bolts in his neck. Physically, these details have become practically synonymous with the character. Part of it is also probably due to just plain old misunderstanding. By this, I mean I think the posters probably played a role in why people think Frankenstein is the name of the monster. Just as it is today, there were plenty of people back in 1931 who never bothered to actually read the original book. And I'm sure lots of them, especially kids, saw this poster and thought, oh, the monster thing is the most prominent character. A couple months ago, we had Dracula, who was the most prominent character on that poster, and the movie was named after him. Ergo, the monster must be named Frankenstein. But there's another element that played a huge part in influencing how people perceive the Frankenstein monster. And interestingly enough, it was a mistake. As I'm sure you've noticed, in each of these posters, the monster is portrayed with green skin. And he shouldn't be. Yes, the makeup for the Frankenstein monster was green, but that doesn't mean the monster was supposed to be green. Okay, time to do a little film history trivia for you. Filming in black and white means you have to be a bit more liberal when it comes to the colors you use. Just because a color looks good, well, in color, doesn't necessarily mean it will look good in monochrome. If you want to create contrast or really emphasize certain features of the set or the actors' faces, you have to do colors that really contrast with each other. And sometimes those colors are not the colors you would see if the film were, well, in color. In particular, the makeup actors had to wear usually looked just this side of being full-blown carnival clown makeup. Here's an example I found on the internet. It's authentic. Crazy, isn't it? Now what does all of this have to do with Frankenstein? Okay, so the original Frankenstein monster makeup was indeed green. Why was it colored green? Because in monochrome, the color read as a shade of ash gray. When contrasted with the other actors, it made the monster look pale. Specifically, it made him look dead, like a corpse. After all, that's what the Frankenstein monster is, a reanimated corpse. So the intent was for him to look pale and dead. Apparently, somebody didn't tell the advertising team, or the ad team just didn't care, because the posters portray the monster with green skin. Just like the makeup. To put this in a modern perspective, imagine if the posters for Guardians of the Galaxy portrayed Groot and Rocket Raccoon as unfinished computer wireframes. That's basically what we're looking at here. A look behind the scenes that destroyed the illusion. Nowadays, everyone, whether they've seen the original movie or not, pictures the Frankenstein monster with green skin, and it's entirely thanks to these posters. And do you want to know the really crazy part? It actually kind of looks good. Green is an interesting color in the realm of fantastical fiction. No joke, I could probably do an entire video on just that. Is a cartoon character summoning evil magic? Bet you it's portrayed as lime green energy. What do the alien invaders look like? Little green men in flying saucers. Actually, let's land on that for a moment, because it's significant to the Frankenstein monster. When creatures have green skin, that's meant to portray them as otherworldly. Alien, if you will. Creatures with green skin are especially inhuman. A big part of that, I think, stems from man's perception of the natural world. After all, what in nature is green? Snakes, for one, and humans have kind of a thing about snakes. Plants are green, and although they are living organisms, they don't have any features which make them relatable, things like eyes or mouths. Certain species of insect are green, and again, those can be really creepy depending on who you are. So green is an inhuman color. Now, on an inhuman monster, like the creature from the Black Lagoon or the beast from 20,000 Fathoms, that color makes sense. On the Frankenstein monster, it might seem out of place at first, and yet curiously, it allows him to straddle the line between human and inhuman. Remember, the idea of the monster is that he was supposed to be a man-made man, but the experiment was a tremendous failure. At least, that's what everyone in the story agrees it is. The audience, however, always gets to see the monster for who he really is. We get to see his humanity, even though his outward appearance is horrifying, and the green winds up emphasizing the strangeness of his appearance. I honestly don't know what led to the monster being portrayed as green in these posters. After all, as I said, he wasn't supposed to be literally green. And yet fortune smiled, and it wound up working. Against all odds, this accidental peek behind the curtain of movie magic wound up creating an image that has lasted through the centuries, right up to the modern day.
It just goes to show you how little details can pile up to completely change what people think about things. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer, signing off. Next time, a poster steeped in cold-blooded murder.